Hi, everyone. It's Josh from Hammerling Wines. I'm the winemaker and owner. Our operation started back in 2018 with the goal of exploring coastal California vineyards through the lens of traditional method sparkling wine. We also make pet nats, but by and large, we're focused on sort of figuring out the traditional method as it applies to unique sort of site-specific areas of California that are, often pretty far flung and tortured in the middle of nowhere, coastal, kind of looking over the ocean. And so that's kind of where we started. And basically, what happened after that was just this really kind of intense search of trying to figure out where the most historic, interesting vineyards are within California, which ones we could get access to, and which ones would be well situated to make sparkling wine. And so one of the sites that we got in touch with pretty early on was called the Masa Vineyard. And so that's a really, really cool site in Carmel Valley. So it's 1,500 feet up. It's just one of the prettiest vineyards that I've ever been to. It's really hard to get to. Most of the ones that we work with, unfortunately, are like out in the middle of nowhere. So it's pretty hard to get to. But when you do get there, it's worth it. And so basically with this Chenin Blanc from Masa, it's a dry farmed 40-year-old site, certified organic. It's been certified organic for, I think, 25 years, sort of way ahead of its time in that way. It was really hard because the fruit's totally allocated. So we had to, we basically made a wine for the owners so that we could get access to it. So we sort of jumped the line a little bit, and we're so fortunate that they gave us a chance to do that. So basically what happened was the wine was stainless steel fermented, which kind of helps give the wine a bit of an edge. We always think of it as like honing the wine, and especially when it's a riper style like this. And so basically that's where we kind of started, and then put it in barrel for, about half of the year, 5 months. And then it was put back into stainless steel to be bottled for secondary fermentation, which is where you add yeast and sugar, and that in bottle ferments to create bubbles. And it gives you a tiny bit more alcohol too. And so basically with this one, what that ends up meaning is you get a little bit of the sort of more tertiary sort of and secondary kind of flavors from about a year aging in bottle after that barrel time. And so that to us is really fun because it sort of allows you to lean into the savory side of Chenin, because there's always like a savory streak. Sometimes it comes across as chervil, sometimes it's more like honeycombed and honeyed in general. And so those are all really wonderful flavors to me. So we wanted to do our best to sort of figure out how to make a sparkling version of that. And so this is where we started. This is our first year, and we'll continue making it. We couldn't make it in 2020. The fires were really rough. And basically this year, though, we managed to kind of nail the pick. It was a rough year for drought and heat wave, so it made everything a little bit harder to nail it, but I think we did a pretty decent job. And so the other part of it too is we do everything by hand in our facility. So we're truly, every single bottle is touched about 4 times at least in our process. And we have a pretty small team. So it's very much human scale winemaking, which is, we think that the actual quality of the product is a little bit better as a result of that, because we're very in tune with what's happening. And so, but in terms of this wine, I think that I'd be curious to see what your whole crew thinks about it. But for me, the tasting notes land somewhere in between this kind of like white nectarine, almost like pear, sort of like pear skin, lemon peel. It's citrusy, but it's also has a little, like I said before, like a little bit of like a honeyed kind of like savory side that I think is really nice. And also for the like part of the inspiration for that is, like when you go to the Loire Valley, every single winery there, pretty much everyone has their own kind of sparkling wine, and it's often with Chenin Blanc. And so I've always been obsessed with those wines. That's kind of where the impetus came for it too. Just wanted to make our version of that. And they're often a little bit higher. They're a little bit riper, a little bit higher in alcohol. And that just, once again, is like sort of unique. It's not like champagne where it's just this really linear chiseled sort of profile. There's often a bit more breadth and like ample fruit quality. And that's something that I really like because it allows us to make it without dosing the wine. So we don't add any sugar at the end to kind of balance it out. The goal is to find balance in the fruit before it actually is made, so that it gets the right level of alcohol and fruit naturally without having to add any more. So that's pretty much that. And then I guess one other thing to note would be that the name. So we called it Always for Pleasure. First of all, just because it's a fun name. Sorry, that's my dog whining over there. It's a fun name. obviously, because wine should be about pleasure. It shouldn't be cerebral and overly thought out and tortured. It should just be like immediately gratifying and fun. And so that's why we called it that mostly. And it's actually a movie by Les Blanc, who's a local filmmaker here in Berkeley. He passed away a number of years ago, but he was here for 30 years. And he basically just dedicated his whole career to making movies about fascinating people on the periphery of society. And you know, we've kind of said that like his style of this sort of verite, this like joyful, compassionate and quiet kind of style of filmmaking is something that we uphold, we value in our own lives, and also in our style of winemaking. We're not trying to be over the top and in your face. So that's that. And I hope you all enjoy the wines. Hopefully you can roast a chicken or get some sort of fun barbecue going to enjoy it. And feel free to reach out if you have any other questions about it. All right, take care.